Hi again, I'm Danielle Nierenberg. This is the second time I've seen this film and the second time I've cried. I'd like to invite both Jim and Patrick up to the stage to join me, please. Yes, keep clapping. Patrick, where are you? I'm so grateful for this film in a million ways. And while Patrick's getting settled, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce Patrick. I think everyone knows Jim at this point. Am I right? Patrick is an award-winning art, documentary, and action photographer and filmmaker. I'm still crying. He's been recognized for 3 critically acclaimed feature-length documentaries, including Threads and Surfer's Blood, and has directed multiple music videos, commercials, and shorts. Patrick is also obviously the director of this film, and it's just a wonderful testament to Jim and all that Jim does. So I want to thank you both for being here. Jim, you were a surprise. I'm so glad you could come and join us and be part of this conversation. You've done some really beautiful work in your life, and to see it portrayed in this film is really, again, deeply, deeply moving to me. So I want to first start, so that I stop crying, on how you first met and how this origin story came about.
Right. So I met Jim probably around 2003. There's a magazine assignment from Surf's Journal. It's an international surf magazine, quarterly, and they wanted. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
You can move it a little closer.
Yeah, they wanted me to document, Jim's work. At the time, I was just a still photographer. I wasn't in the motion picture business yet. And so I took some photos of Jim creating his land art and the dinners, and it ended up in a magazine glossy article in the Surface Journal. I think that was some of the first big press you got, right, Jim?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it makes the mention of you and I working together, and the question of press and things like that. It's been an odd journey to go from when doing something that's like the artwork is personal and I'm on isolated beaches, and then Patrick's coming out to do an article about to bring the artwork to the world. So
Sure.
And Patrick did that really sensitively as a photographer and now as a filmmaker. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a private issue, as you guys have seen in the film, just for Jim to be on the beach by himself and not
Sure.
be surrounded by cameras or drones or whatnot. And,
Sure.
and as part of his, meditation practice. But
Right.
I think it worked out nicely. Like I wasn't.
You think? I mean, you tapped into this man's soul, is how I feel.
Right.
And I feel like we all saw that come through.
Right, and that is definitely like from the day we met, 2003 till now. That's how long it really took to get into Jim's mind, and there was a lot of very sensitive issues that couldn't be addressed within like a camera in your face interview
Sure.
type of scenario. It took years to get some of the things out of Jim because that's just the way it is. I didn't want to rush him or
Absolutely.
Right.
It's building a friendship. It's a little bit like therapy. It's this meditative practice that you've built. It's all of those things, I think, kind of combined. I think words that come to mind for me, when I watch anything, I just jot down what, the words that sort of speak to me. Precision, methodical, beautiful, simple, perfection, place, emotional, pain, compulsion, peace, and healing. And these are all things that I think this film encompasses in such a really unique and beautiful way. And then it brings food into all of it, which is so much of like building this community and building this family that you've now created.
Regarding filmmaker.
I know he can't help himself.
The filmmaker. From the beginning of Outstanding in the Field, the way I thought about it was people like my brother, who's work so hard with so much passion to realize feeding people that, I wanted the farmers to be on the soapbox and telling their story, and to kind of back off and let it, to use the word organically, progress. I think of the events as being that we don't know the farm and we don't know the farmer. You can say that maybe you buy the food from a particular farm and you enjoy them. Say it's an apple or vegetable, or you make a dish with it. But to go out onto their where they do their life's work, and to hear them express, bringing in the harvest, and that just like the connection that people in nature, it's like agriculture, and those are the places where nature and culture meet. And I think that a relationship to nature, since we're part of nature and we do eat, and that we affect the world through our eating, that if we hear directly from those people, that potentially over time we have greater insight into the condition of our communities and the world. And but a lot of that is just not totally knowing, and then learning over time, just learning, having the space for people to tell their story. Absolutely.
Patrick, there's so much. I mean, when Jim started doing this farm to table, wasn't this huge movement that it is now, and this is a film that could become easily this is just for foodies.
Right.
But it's not. It's, again, I go back to the emotion and the pain that it brings out clearly in me, and the healing that it also represents. It's this combination of many, many things, and that's hard as a filmmaker to put all together in one film. That's not very long. It's not a very long film, and I'm wondering what that process was like.
Yeah, it was definitely a very long process. Like I said, there was an ongoing situation as we filmed more and more, and we actually went through 3 different editors till we got our final cut. And it was really tough to put all the bits and pieces together to make them flow, like I said, to make it a long film. Because a film like that, you don't want it to stretch out. I mean, it could have easily been like 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
But we wanted to, the message to be precise and kind of get to the different points. And I think, unfortunately, Jess Carfield, our editor, is not here. He's in Brooklyn, New York, and he just does amazing work. And we're definitely very thankful that he was on our team, and he really made things happen.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the farmers and the landscapes that were chosen, and how that worked, and how you've thought about that process.
Well, from the first event, it's very similar to the events as they're taking place now, is that people arrive at the site, and maybe they have never been to a farm or heard from a farmer, and I want them to discover moment by moment. So when I set up the table, I take a look at the site and think about how far people are going to walk, and how much sunburn they're going to get, and
Right.
So there's a purposeful, including the elements. The film's pretty funny with getting people hit by a wave.
I love it. I loved it.
It's pretty mischievous.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to mention. So I was, in the one scene, I'm sitting at the end of the table, so you could think to yourself, I might get hit by a wave at any moment. I knew the moment was coming, and there's kind of a ramp for the water to go up. I didn't think that it would actually go above everyone and then land right on top of them.
On their wine.
and actually, the main course had just been placed on the table. But a funny thing is, as whimsical as we are, we try to be rational. There's always an extra platter in case someone trips on the way to the table.
Sure.
So we just moved that group to the other end. And one more thing is that it it was a couple farmer friends, and also a couple friends. So I pretty much the regular customers I didn't get them with the wave, and although the next table down they got pretty wet too, but they didn't get the whole thing.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I want to go back. This could be easily turned into like, oh, let's just show off all these chefs, and the amazing things they're doing. But the only chef that I think a lot of folks maybe in this room recognized was Marcus Samuelson. But so you really portray all of these chefs who are doing incredible things and all of these farmers who are doing incredible things all over the world. I mean, that's a massive undertaking in and of itself. And so to find to find that perfect spot because you're an artist, I'm trying to understand in my head how that all comes together.
Well, there's actually a few folks that have gone to Outstanding in the Field events and worked Outstanding in the Field events that are in the audience. Could they raise your hands that if you've worked or you've attended? Yeah, a few folks. So let's give credit where credit's due. The people that work and to make these events happen, like the team, is just profound and amazing. How
Absolutely.
they can find the strength to. It's not easy to do what we do. And
well, you're a perfectionist. You don't. I mean this in the best way, but you don't seem that easy to work with.
thanks.
Very true. Very true.
I'm kind of just There's a logistics team. I'm not the logistics team. So the idea, it's a good idea, and then people want to manifest it and make it real, and they bring their own skills that I. Of course, that's true with any community or any contribution that people have to realize something. Is that different people have different skills, and a lot of times I need to get out of the way for people to make it happen.
Sure. And Patrick, documenting that journey, Jim's journey from surfer to model to chef to what he does now to this incredible artist, and I want to call you a healer because I feel very healed by this film. I'm emotional today, but that's again a really interesting story to tell. It's not easy, and there's a lot of history that you have to pull, and I know it took you since 2003 to do this, but again, how do you put that all into one sort of film?
Yeah, I think it was almost.
I'm really curious about that too.
Well, it's like I always felt like I was prepping for like an amazing dinner that would happen maybe around Thanksgiving or Christmas, but I would be planning the seats way ahead of time just to make sure I got everything out of my own garden and everything is fresh and it developed and it was really growing and kind of being macerated and being part of this bigger organic molasses that got cut up and dissected and reorganized, structured in order to tell the story of Jim from the beginning to the end. So,
Kind of, yeah. It's like a farm plan or a recipe of some sort that you have to think ahead on. I want to talk about that bus. Tell me everything about that bus. I want to get in there. I want to dig under things.
I'm trying to think about where it is right now. It's getting, it's in the shop. It's actually getting a bit of body work and paint. It's supposed to be ready for Coachella to have in the music festival, and we'll have some events there. The best, actually, I had some this Caleb Co was on the first tour of the country, and we didn't have any kind of vehicle. And I said I had about $9,000, and I said Caleb, just get us a bus, and I was like, whatever you find, just bring it back. He went up to Oregon and found this bus, and then he drove it down, and the lights went off on the middle. Everything turned off, and just to get it down to California was a. But it's had a lot of work. The first few tours, it was like the tour of mechanics. Basically,
Sure.
It was. And some mechanics would just be absolutely overjoyed to work with something so surprising.
Sure.
And sometimes they'd show confidence, and really they would get nowhere with it. And then there was people that were just mechanic magicians, and they would bring it back to life. But it's actually, I think the last time across the country was the first year since it was purchased in 2004 where I felt confident that it was not going to break down.
That's great.
And it took that long to.
That's
Yeah.
great, though.
But I'm looking forward to driving it.
It's its own character in the film. That's why I love it so much.
Yeah, I went to a national gathering last season. I went to a national gathering of people that had these old buses. I wasn't paying attention to my community, which they were manufactured in Ohio in the 50s, and so I went out there and saw 18 other people that had old buses like mine.
Wow.
And most of them looked terrible.
Yours looks so shiny.
There was only 2 or 3 that were like, it should go in a museum and never be driven again.
That's great. I want to talk about, these last 2 years of the pandemic, and one of the silver linings, at least for me, has been this ability to talk about mental health in a way that is more open and more honest and more constructive than I've seen throughout my lifetime. And, during the first part of the film, you come off as just like this really cool guy, like who everyone wants to get to know, and you're like, this artist and, again, perfectionist. And then we see in the latter part of the film the struggles that you had to go through to get to where you are. And I'm hoping you can both talk about this ability now to talk about mental health struggles, the struggles that your brothers and your mother went through, and also the struggles that you've gone through in your life. And this is, being so honest and open about it, I think is it's brave and it's needed, especially at this time in this country.
Well, I have to say that everything comes from. It's hard to it all comes from from a mother's love. I mean, really, I just want to, as challenging as my mother's life was and what she had experienced, and then there's the aspect of just patience with difficult times and difficult situations, and then time passes. But it takes a while.
No, and when Patrick and I had our preparatory call for this, we talked about that, like how, to sort of delve into that and get it out into the world is this very unique thing that a food film can do. And we see, so many chefs who've talked about mental health struggles and restaurant workers who face so much abuse over the last several years. So again, to get this out there in the world is really, really important. And I wonder if Patrick, if you've been asked about this, in the work that you've been doing.
I think what really happened with the beginning of COVID, it was sort of a lot of people opened up to themselves and kind of had time to look into themselves and see, what was going on with their life. Myself, I started a sunrise salutation practice, getting up before the sun would come up, and I'd do my yoga with the sunrise in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And that was really helpful because I have to say I was very down and depressed, when the first lockdown happened.
Sure. And
I wasn't feeling very well, and it really, helped out. And I think also talking with other people, and it was sort of like a universal thing. A lot of people tended to their gardens. They grew vegetables. They try to take care of themselves, their family, friends, just to gain somewhat of a stability and not slide down and become a wreck. Because
right.
There's some of those cases, of course, too. But and people really opened up and they're vulnerable. They're showing their feelings. They're discussing with friends. But with myself and other friends, we would talk very openly. Maybe pre-COVID, that would have been something that was not happening because a lot of people were just kind of pushing stuff under the rug.
Sure.
So it was nice to see that the world opened up, that was a very positive thing that came out of COVID.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you have something?
I want to say that the culture of kitchens and the behavior of chefs and the poor behavior in kitchens is something that's better. It's to consider these questions of work and the work environment. I do. I'm laughing a little bit because I'm thinking about some of the staff that as you can see on the film, I'm kind of spaced out, and and some of the staff would say, Jim, like, how come you're not like throwing pans and screaming and yelling? Because that's a lot of people's
Absolutely.
ideas of what happens in kitchens, but it's definitely has not been all kitchens all the time that have always been that way. And I think chefs and people that work in restaurants, there's the potential for a very rewarding and fulfilling experience that relates to feeding people, and food is culture, and I think a lot of people are ready to and are doing their best to like best foot forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was talking to Tom Colicchio the other day for Food Tank's podcast, and we were talking about how restaurant culture, there's no way it's going back to the way it was before, because too much has been unveiled, partly because of the pandemic, but partly before because of organizations like Restaurant Opportunity Center United and others who really unveiled the sexual harassment, the abuse, the mental health stress that being in a kitchen can cause, and then the addiction that can result from that. So I think we're at a period, there's this moment that we have right now that we can change the culture.
It's hard to say this, but I mean, just from the, and I'm not saying this to be to point out how great the kitchens were, the people in the environments that I used to work in, but there was a moment of in the early 2000s when I call it like peak pirate, where chefs were, I'm drinking more, doing more drugs, and have more tattoos than you, and it was sort of like this outdoing of like poor behavior, like I'm a mess, you're a mess, let's be the mess, like let's be fucking awful. It's like, seriously, that was an environment, and I want to have nothing to do with it. And when Anthony Bourdain's book came out, may he rest in peace.
Sure.
And there was a bit of lionizing of poor behavior, and I didn't finish the book. I think I read about 80% of it. It was terrible. I would like to see everyone's book. I want to see what people think and believe. And the book was getting a lot of attention, and I was just like so disgusted from kitchens that I'd been around and chefs that I'd been around that I just like, I don't like this. You're saying in your book that this is like all this drug taking
Right.
and harassment is like, this is what we do. I say bullshit.
Right.
That's not. So, that being said, hopefully people are more considerate and concerned about these kinds of things.
Absolutely, and what I've read about Anthony is that he was, regretted a lot of that near the end of his life.
Yeah, and he also, he did amazing, beautiful things with considering culture
Absolutely.
and communicating well about culture and food as culture around the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. Patrick, I want to talk about some of the cinematic techniques that you use during the film. And, one is an obvious one, but I'm not a filmmaker, but it was very stark and beautiful to me is Jim's back to the camera, with his hat on. And it's like such this beautiful picture of this very tall human being, with the landscape behind him. And it's just really wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy, right? We got all the ingredients. We got a tall, handsome cowboy here.
Right.
We got the giant red bus, and we have the presence of the huge tables. So those are three things that make that make great ingredients, right? So you can't go wrong, and come from still photography. That was my background. And
Yeah.
So I definitely like to work on my compositions and translate them into motion picture, and I think for the most part it worked out pretty well, even though I've saw some terrible shaky shots in there that I'm not so proud of. But
I love the shaky shots, though. I was
Right.
going to mention that earlier. I think that adds such like a flavor to it. I thought it wasn't.
I mean, it was because I wanted to be there in the moment. I wanted
Yeah.
to kind of pick up on the Maisels theory, like the cinema verite
Yeah.
form. And actually, we had an exhibition at the Maisel Cinema in Harlem, across the street from Marcus Hamilton's place, where this whole idea grew together that we're going to make this documentary on Jim. So there was a huge influence to get from those guys, and Albert was still alive when we had our art show there. So
Yeah, absolutely.
and I worked with him in France on a bicycle documentary. So I think he was a huge influence on me, and so was my father, who was a still life photographer for Vogue magazine. He was
Wow.
a food guy who'd shoot everything with big 8x10 cameras and spend like a whole day just like creating one meal and get it perfect with big flashes and film and very complicated process compared to what people are doing these days.
So all of this sort of, both of your backgrounds like bring food and art together in this really creative way, and that's something. Food Tank is a research and advocacy organization, but like we're so interested in this intersection of food and art and how they can complement each other and bring in different folks who are not foodies, bring in the health people, bring in other youth and others who normally wouldn't be interested in food and agriculture, but getting them involved. I wonder what your thoughts are on.
I just love that. I mean, the word tank. I mean, which relates to think tank, of course. So when in conversation with my staff and about what outstanding the field is and what we might want to communicate to the world, I really like to emphasize that. We don't know until we go on the journey, and that to say that we know before we actually go on the journey is just like not, because without saying the field, that I like the farmers to say what they are knowledgeable about.
Sure.
If there's a farmer that's deeply engaged in climate questions and is profoundly knowledgeable, that's going to be what they're going to stress. And at the next event, maybe the scientist, a farmer is really interested in soil science,
Mm-hmm.
and that'll be there. And the soil science person won't be talking about climate, and the climate person won't be talking. I mean,
Sure.
those are the kind of things I like to emphasize about the discovery process of what the events are,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's good. Yeah, I just love the idea of people considering questions that are important and.
Absolutely, and the
Think
interconnectedness.
the food tank, or think tanks and that kind of thing.
Thanks. I wonder, it's like I asked somebody this the other day, like what their favorite thing about the research that they had done. What's your favorite thing about the film? It's like picking your favorite child or your favorite dog. I know it. It's difficult.
Well, what I first was drawn to was like the whole Americana aspect, to travel across the nation and follow Jim and get to know places.
Did you mention that you're German, Patrick?
Oh yeah, I'm German. And it was just fascinating to see parts of the country that I would probably never go to.
Sure.
And so that was fun and sometimes a little tough. Some places it was really hard to get good food. If we weren't nearby where Jim was, it was impossible to find an avocado. It was impossible to find greens. It was like we were with the film crew at a restaurant somewhere between like Colorado and Oregon, in the middle of nowhere. I forgot the state, but we asked for an avocado, and they go, avocado? Nah, I don't think so. And then my friend asked, well, do you guys have any fruit? And then, well, there might be a can of fruit back there. Let me check. So it was pretty tough to see all that. And,
Sure.
and I think with Jim's mission, he's really flying the flag of promoting organic food and educating people about it, and that's great. But the second aspect, what I really liked about it, how Jim's thing went global, and we got to include my good friend Sancho Rodriguez from the Basque Country, who did the dinner at the Remiuri family vineyard, and bringing on those elements. I think it's very important, to see it as a global movement, and that was just very enjoyable.
Absolutely, absolutely. Favorite part, Jim, before we turn to questions from the audience?
Well, the first thing I thought about was I liked being the subject. I liked the pacing of the film. That Patrick was able to let it breathe and not rush too quickly from one thing to another. So it's fun for me to see some significant. Sorry.
Am I boring?
No, some people that are make this all happen. That they're they got to tell their stories and. Yeah, it's nice to see my brother. I mean, he inspired he's a pioneer in organic agriculture. Sure. He's kind of spoke for the Congress people and about organic issues with organic agriculture, and he's sort of his passion translated into my wanting to do this.
It's great, great. I know you almost have questions, so I want to give Patrick and Jim a round of applause before we do that. Thank you both so much. Questions? Yes.
I know it's been a while since you guys have consistently been on tour, but for both of you, what was the last thing that you were surprised by on tour, given that you've been doing it for so long?
Well, I got a good one. For the New York City dinner, it was probably the very first Outstanding in the Field dinner where there was no alcohol whatsoever served because we were in this public park. That was the first.
That was the first. Yeah, it was kind of zen. I meant to use the word zen again. Where there's it's actually really soothing to not have any alcohol whatsoever. The vegan events and the no alcohol events. I like this aesthetic experience, but yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
I want to mention that we were closed down. Outstanding in the Field had no events whatsoever for 15 months. All the staff was, we completely closed down. It was very, very, it's incredibly difficult. But most of the staff came back. I had no idea whether it'd be like 10% or 50, I don't know. Yeah, most of them came back to work.
That's wonderful.
I'm trying to not. That's part of the place we are now. With it's wonderful to come back to some clarity and stability, and a lot of hardworking people, make it all work.
Absolutely, absolutely. Other thoughts and questions? Yes.
There's 3 events in the Austin area. Yeah, there's 2 at Willie Nelson's ranch and 1 at Boggy Creek. We have the chefs from Hestia. Yeah, fantastic restaurant. Also, Lenoir and Lenoir, and Barley Swine. Yeah, so those are the 3. And we've been coming to Texas for quite a long time, and things have always been wonderful, actually. And I think each year we have about 8 or 9 events in Texas every year.
So what's the website so folks can check? It's outstandinginthefield.
Yeah, outstandinginthefield.com.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts? Yes.
I was blown away by those aerial shots that were still. How'd you get those?
Yeah, that was the amazing work of Brighton Denevan. That's Jim's son. He really got into drone flying throughout the project. The first shots we did, we hired helicopters, but I almost slipped out of the non-existing door of a helicopter in British Columbia.
Oh, God.
And those are like, like $3,000, $5,000, like not a cheap situation. And then good friend Jason Diamond over here from New York City flew the helicopter for the Brooklyn dinner. I mean, he didn't fly it, he did the filming, of course. And that was still pre-drone. That was 2013. And then like the drone technology luckily got really evolved, and Brighton got so amazingly into it, and the timing could have not been any better, because when he first started with as anything, it took him a while to get into it, and now he's probably one of the best drone filmers in the
Wow,
world.
that's cool.
Yeah, he's in the film. He's 3 feet tall. Though.
Well, we started in 2013, like we started rolling, but we started thinking about it probably like since like 2005, 2007. Yeah, it's been a while.
You in the back, yes, you.
For a while there, they had a lot of dinners in Austin where you ate in complete darkness. You couldn't see anything, but you could experience the food and really test your palate. I was curious if you ever experienced anything like that.
Oh, you mean the Dinner in the Dark series? I haven't been to one. Sounds cool. Like, I'm gonna try it. Yeah, experiential. The whole idea of back in the first event in 1999, which we didn't do a ton of events because there was no demand whatsoever for the events.
That was pre-internet, so nobody. I mean, there was internet.
Yeah, we actually could. You had to decide
Sure.
about snail mail versus email. So at one point, we sent both snail mail to let people know about the events, and then I mean it's been enough time so that many of us won't remember about this, but there was a time when this whole idea of experiences being more cooler than objects, or collecting objects and that kind of thing, or where do you want to put your energy in. So that we were kind of part of the emergence of the experience being significant for people, so which has been
And
rewarding.
Sorry, it wasn't until the Vanity Fair article written by Howie Kahn.
That was GQ.
GQ, sorry. Same thing. Just kidding. Since there was actually like demand for those dinners,
Right.
and as I said, that was pre-Instagram, pre-Facebook.
Yeah, we had, it was all the way till 7 years of, every event lost money for 7 years. So when we went across the country, it was sort of like, let's do less events.
Right.
And then we run, I mean, really it's a couple, CBS News Sunday Morning did a really beautiful piece, and which has, at that time, had 10 million viewers. So we went from about 15 or 16 events per year, and decided the next year we did 33 events, and they all sold out. So it sounds kind of crazy, and some of those here that work outstanding in the field know it's crazy. But we have we have 147 events this year in 9 countries.
That's amazing.
There's 25,000 tickets.
Wow.
First day of I should do. Like you can buy a ticket, but you can't buy it until the first day of spring at noon Pacific. And then everyone buys them all at the same time. And it's total chaos, and it's very stressful. but check out the website.
Awesome, thank you. Yes. Oh.
Curious with the art on that scale, do you measure? Is it intuitive? Like, how does that happen?
There's no measuring. The circles are not perfect. They're
They look
perfect. They're
perfect.
perfect-ish. So there's, and so you're looking at it. Actually, some of them are verticals, but yeah, they're pretty accurate. But So when you see a spiral of circles and they get bigger and bigger and bigger, I'm trying to make the circle, to my perception, very, very, as slightly larger as possible that I could perceive. And sometimes it'll be exactly the same size as the last one. Sometimes it'll actually be a little smaller, but maybe 70% of the time plus, it'll actually be a little bit bigger. So all the correct decisions argue against the wrong decisions to say that it's like super accurate and everything, but it's just accumulation of enough correct decisions.
That's great.
But it's also super. I want to say it's super. It's meditative, but it's physical in the same measure. So it's they're equal measure of physical, movement, and then in the thinking part is also kind of like they're kind of equal.
That's great. We have time for one more question.
Patrick, were you taking stills of Jim's art? Is that how you met?
Yeah, I was taking stills of Jim's art before we started the film. I did some journalism pieces for different magazines, and that's how it all came together, and that's how we got to meet each other.
I want to mention one more thing about the stills. When the first 15 years I was drawing in the sand, I didn't pay strong attention to the documentation. Kind of didn't want to be distracted by it, and a lot of the photographs I have are from disposable cameras that I bought at Walgreens when I ran down to Walgreens to get a disposable camera before the Tide came in the 90s. And there's one particularly beautiful photograph which Patrick took that I finished the drawing, and it was like, this is about an hour out of town. So I called him and said, "Hey, you happen to be around? Like the tide's coming in."
Run!
and he happened to be like 10 minutes away or something. Just like the one with the.
Yeah, it's that long stretch between San Francisco and Santa Cruz, like in the middle of nowhere. And so I like to go surfing around there. Get out of town, get surf uncrowded surf spots, and
Sure.
then Jim's happened to call me. I happen to have my camera with me, so it all worked out.
That's wonderful. I want to thank you both so much for being here. I want to thank you for the film. It's beautiful. And I want to thank all of you for being here today. Thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.